Tinubu tackles Peter Obi and Atiku at NLC Town Hall, says he is more fit to rule. So in preparation for the 2023 general elections, the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu and his running mate Senator Kashim Shettima attended the town hall meeting with the Organized Labour of the Nigerian Labour Congress and also the Trade Union of Nigeria. So there he boasted that he was fitter or more fit to rule than the two frontrunners in the presidential race. And of course, we know who he's talking about. Although he refused to spell out the names of the individuals he was referring to, their description perfectly typified the presidential candidates of both the Labour Party and the PDP, which is Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi. Tinubu spoke stealthily about Atiku as he compared his capacity to rule to his, saying that Atiku's lasting achievements were the sales of national assets to his friends and partners. In his words, he says, "Today, the questions you all must ask yourselves are these. Who can be trusted to accomplish all of this? The man who has done it before, or the man whose most lasting achievement as vice president is the corrupt sale of national assets to his friends and cronies?" Tinubu also asked the audience to compare his blueprint for developing Lagos with Peter Obi's pride that he conserved the resources of his state, Anambra, while infrastructure and workers' welfare were not up to date. In his words, who has the better plan? The man whose blueprint guided the emergence of Lagos State as the fifth largest economy in Africa, or the man whose greatest pride is the amount of money he has managed to bury in sand while his state's infrastructure decayed and its workers suffered endless hardship? At the end of all these claims, his media aide, Mr. Tunde Rahman, issued a statement that revealed that Tinubu had appealed to both unions to endorse him for the presidential position, as he staked his claims on the fact that his track record as the former Lagos State governor could attest to his quest for good governance in the country. You know what I will say for the first time is when I've actually heard Tinubu have the will to show competition. You know what I mean? I think, of course, everyone has been throwing the phrase, "Oh yes, he's built Lagos." You know, his blueprint for making Lagos the fifth largest economy in Africa. People would say these arguments for him, and of course, with Tinubu and his health issues, and obviously in public where he's been unable to speak properly. So we definitely doubt his abilities to confidently show up and brag or compete or show competence amongst his two other competitions, competitors, which I actually think, for the first time, I'm like, okay, this individual actually seems to want this presidency in terms of checking himself rather than the entitlement of, it is my turn. I love corn so much that I will become president, if that makes sense. So then let's actually look at what this individual Tinubu has said and if his arguments are very strong. To be honest, I feel like of all the three candidates, I feel like Atiku sort of is the least that, to be honest, yes, there have been accusations he's been vice president before, but in terms of anything positive that has to do with competency as a vice president or being in office, I've actually not seen. I feel like with Tinubu, because he's been governor, and also Peter Obi, who's also been governor as well, there's certain things to draw from both of their administrations. At the end of the day, I think the argument, which to be honest, I feel like is his only really strong argument about building Lagos, Tinubu, he's rinsed that a lot, and I think it goes down to the people. What are Lagosians saying? Well, what are sane Lagosians saying? Because that's a different thing. Because if you look at Tinubu's population, his target market, which are the Agboros in Lagos, they'd give a different story. But when it comes to the development of Lagos, to a very large extent, it is highly unlikely that a sane Lagosian who's lived in Lagos would attribute that success to him. Because I think in terms of just economically, I feel like economically, yes, you can give all the terms, you can, go to the central bank, you can, apply so many economic policies, do all that. But for the people to actually judge and for you to connect the people and for them to say, listen, you have proven to me you are in favor for sustainable development and my standard of living. I don't think Lagosians can say that for him. The only person that Lagosians can probably vouch for is Fashola, because he really connected with the people, not just economically, where you make these policies, or let's increase our exchange rates. You do all these things sort of in the back, in the behind the scenes. But when it comes to connecting with the people and standard of living, I mean, there's so many things. For example, with the roads in Lagos State, in fact, making sure that Lagos is clean, making sure that, so many bridges that have been built by Fashola. There's a time in understanding, the use of Okadas and the enforcement of helmets and how strict that was. I mean, there's a time in Lagos, you do not want VIO to catch you not wearing your seatbelt. These are instances that you can say, okay, fine. This individual in office thinks about the daily living, not just for now, but for the future of Lagos State. So I think Fashola, when it comes to development of Lagos, not just developing, the country, and when it comes to monetary policies and all that, it doesn't have to be that alone. We're also talking development of the individuals that are in the state, and this is how if Fashola came and wanted to go for president, I mean, a lot of people might have their personal views against him, but if you were in Lagos at that time, you cannot. I feel like he even has more of validity using the argument of trying to develop Lagos, because more than anything, the economy and making it the fifth largest, okay, but we're talking about a society, we're talking about standard of living, we are talking about development. These are better measures to actually value or measure the growth of a country, of a state. Not just economically. We have gone far beyond using economic models to judge whether a state has been developed or not. So really, I find that argument quite daunting, and I feel like why in Peter Obi's scenario, when conserving resources is a big pride to him, because again, in context of understanding Nigerian politics, the stories that we hear of Nigeria is in a deficit. We have a spending problem, and then you have somebody, we know how big our spending problem is, and then you have an individual that is proud of conserving funds and resources after leaving office, and you think that is not something to be proud about. I mean, this is a country where there are loans that are taken externally that we don't even have plans on how to pay these loans back. We're talking, you have in the national budget, but then when it comes to things that, for example, like education, welfare, pensions, you find that the budgets for these are not even enough. So it's like you actually have to, if you're going to argue and trying to make a case for yourself and trying to give yourself points, I mean, conserving energy is more, I say conserving energy, conserving funds and resources, understanding how huge of a problem that is, how structural of a problem that is in our government. That is a stronger argument in terms of developing a nation and also tackling corruption, because when you're conserving funds, that also shows that there is also accountability, and there's a record of how funds are being spent. There's actually a record. It gives room for traceability. That is all that it does. And so it's like looking at the validity of both arguments. And I think, to be honest, Tinubu, yes, for the first time, is actually showing that he can really compete and speak for himself and compare himself, in a more competent way, rather than being very petty and talking about or trying to throw dibs at another party. Anyways, what do you think about what Tinubu has said? And do not forget to like and put your comments in the comment section below.